Hey everyone, it's Anime Reaper coming at you with a new What If. What if Naruto found out about Uzumaki clan at a young age? This fanfiction was written by Dreener. If you like this What If and want more like it, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to check the description and leave a comment down below. Without further ado, let's get started. Chapter 1, Uzumaki Seal. In this story, Naruto has red hair. Konoha was in sorrow at the recent death of their hero, and probably their strongest Hokage. The most intense screams were heard in a room where a newborn baby's cries were forceful. Konoha's secret room. It's almost as though he's realized he's lost both of his parents, says a tall guy with spiky white hair. Only a couple of Konoha's shinobi were there in the room with the newborn infant boy to talk. Yes, we lost many fine shinobi today. Citizens are still scared for their lives, and much of the country is on fire, but on top of it all, we lost Kushina Uzumaki, our fourth Hokage and the final successor of the Uzumaki clan. Worst of all, this youngster will have no notion what they look like. The second voice was that of an old guy in his late 40s. What do you think we should do, Jiraiya-san, as this boy's godfather? Asked the elder gentleman. Jiraiya started speaking in a low, regretful tone. I'm not certain, sensei. I'm sure Minato would want me to keep an eye on the kid, but I'm not sure what I'd be able to do since I have a lot of travel scheduled. What the village will do next is the real question. Minato died without a surviving heir. As they waited for the former Hokage to speak, both men in the room went quiet. I shall assume the title of Hokage once again until I find a competent substitute to manage the village, Sarutobi remarked as he closed his eyes. Jiraiya, I have an assignment for you, he said to Jiraiya, a former pupil and one of his most devoted ninjas. He remarked that. Sarutobi-sensei, what is this assignment you've given to me? He asked, but his attention was pulled to the sobbing infant. I want you to utilize your spy network to fool the other villages so that we can repair our ninja squads and restore Konoha's defenses, Sarutobi said. Jiraiya told the elderly Kage, I had no intention of employing my surveillance network for that reason, but it looks that I'm out of options. By the way, Sarutobi-sensei, you should alter the child's surname from Namikaze to Uzumaki. Minato had numerous opponents in IWA, including the Tsuchikage, as well as adversaries in other elements, so the senior ninja knew what he meant. Few recall the Uzumaki clan, which has long ago slipped into oblivion. To top it all off, the infant Naruto had his mother's red hair. I suppose I'll have to nickname the child Uzumaki. The decision was taken by the Hokage. Jiraiya's eyes were filled with anguish and sorrow as he moved in closer to the infant, who had calmed down. Naruto gently opened his eyes, which were a deep blue like the sea. Naruto was watching Jiraiya with bated breath. Would you look at that, similar eyes, and I believe his hair is already beginning to get spiky like Minato's, Jiraiya stated as she looked down at the kid. The sage grinned and put his finger to his face. Naruto grinned and tried to move his small hands to his face, but he couldn't. Sarutobi observed the grief in his eyes, but he also saw love. How about the whiskers? Is it due to the fact that he is a Jinchuriki? Kushina didn't have them, but her seal was distinctive, wasn't it? Jiraiya raised his hand. No, those markings existed previous to the sealing, as far as we can ascertain. So they're merely birthmarks, and if I had to guess, it's because his mother was carrying the Kyuubi when he was born, Hiruzen said. Jiraiya nodded, understanding, and kept staring at the infant, who kept staring at him. I'll pay you a visit now and then, Jiraiya remarked, smiling and nodding to his sensei. I'm going to depart right now and will return as soon as possible. I should be on my way. If I have to go, I should do it as soon as possible. Keep the kid safe, sensei. I don't want to die and have to face Kushina if Naruto comes before. Oh, and I'm sad to hear of the passing of your wife. Jiraiya stated this, and then he was gone, out the window, much to the Hokage's annoyance. Tomorrow. It was hazardous to face Kyuubi, but confronting the council was too much for the Hokage. He was now faced with his second greatest adversary. The Council of Konoha. The civilian council and the elders, comprised of Koharu, Homura, and Danzo, deliberated on what to do next. Sarutobi had assigned the care of the young Naruto to several of his Umbu and Kakashi Hatake, one of the village's greatest shinobi. The civilian council was arguing about how horrible things were right now. How many people had died, and how much it would take to restore to normality. The clan leaders remained deafeningly quiet. Hayashi and Fugaku were both silent, buried in their own thoughts. What became of the fourth? The chief of Clan Nara queried, looking at his Hokage. Not that I have anything against you, Lord Third, the clan leader said politely, but the fourth is in the hospital. Everyone could see the ancient Hokage's grief in his eyes. Shikaku's eyes widened as he comprehended what was going on. He was extremely acquainted with the expression. He'd seen that face before and didn't need confirmation to guess out what had happened to him. The fourth died sealing the Kyuubi, the elderly man broke the stillness with. There was nothing being spoken. Shikaku dropped his sight as he realized his comrade and Hokage had passed away. Many members of the clan shared the same idea. Minato was a well-known shinobi who died tragically. Where did he seal the Kyuubi? Danzo asked quickly, breaking the stillness. The Hokage's pupils constricted as he looked at him. Following that, the whole civilian council started to ask the same question. Sarutobi lifted his hand to hush them. He sealed Kyuubi into a baby. Naruto Uzumaki, he responded cautiously, anxious about what others would think of the situation. The civilian council was in a frenzy, demanding Naruto's execution, just as he anticipated. Kill the demon, or, he's weak now, throw him out of the community. When Sarutobi heard this reply, he unleashed his killing intent, making the whole civilian council to experience visions of their own doom. Even the bulk of the head clans were having difficulty breathing. A particular Nara was silent. He recalled his buddy Minato informing him that his kid will be named Naruto. He understood who Naruto was straight immediately. Silence, ordered Sarutobi Hiruzen, and the whole council became quiet. He gazed at every face on the council with a gloomy expression, offering nothing but anguish if they didn't keep quiet. Minato intended Naruto to be portrayed as a hero, not a monster. He's the one who prevents the Kyuubi from escaping and killing us all, explains Hiruzen. The third stated it in a threatening tone. Some civilian council members wanted to speak out against it, but when they saw Lord Third's killing expression, they restrained their mouth. I will retake the cap in my position as third Hokage, he said. Everyone seems to be thinking the same thing. No one on the council objected to this, save Danzo, who seemed annoyed. Because individuals like Hiruzen made Konoha weak, he longed to be the next Hokage. Who are Naruto's parents, Lord Third? Ahayaga queried, his eyes welling up with tears. Sarutobi had opted not to tell them because he was scared the knowledge would spread and the other 4 great shinobi villages would soon discover Minato had a son. Iwa would go to any extent to murder him in retaliation for what the fourth did to them during their effort to seize the Leaf Village. With a sad face, Sarutobi answered. I'm not sure, but I know his parents were killed in the fight against Kyuubi. The leader of the Hayaga clan disagreed, but remained silent. Shikaku Nara had already worked out who his parents were, he noted. The fact that the youngster lacked parents aided the civilian of them had already began to think of injuring the demon, and the fact that they didn't have any parents to keep an eye on him made things simpler. The elders were suspicious about the boy's father. Danzo, on the other hand, understood precisely who it was and realized the youngster could be transformed into a legitimate weapon and useful to Konoha, just as Kyumo had done with their Jinhiriki. After hearing a cough, Hiruzen turned to confront Danzo. I'd want you to give me the boy, Hokage-sama. I can teach him and turn him into a wonderful village ninja, Danzo proposed with a smile. Hiruzen's and several of the clan leaders' eyes narrowed. No. And the child has a name. He shall be reared at the orphanage just like any other boy, the Hokage declared unequivocally. Danzo was not pleased with this one. He reasoned that there had to be more methods to make him a weapon. Allow me to nurture him, Hokage-sama, with all due respect. He'd have a family and could be like a brother to my kid, Shikaku offered, and the majority of the council members were surprised since they didn't anticipate Shikaku to say such a thing. Please accept my apologies, but the request has been refused. Naruto cannot be given to any clan. He will grow up in an orphanage. He'll start at the academy when he's 6 years old. The announcement was made by the Hokage. Despite the fact that he wanted to deliver Naruto to Shikaku, he was fully aware that he wouldn't be able to pull it off. The other clans, particularly the Uchiha clan, would be enraged. Shikaku had no time to object. You would let the demon to enter the academy and become stronger, shouted a civic council member. The Hokage clenched his teeth and dilated his pupils. He was furious because Naruto had been referred to as a demon. He motioned with his palm, and the shouting man's head rolled to the floor, blood pouring everywhere. The citizens were taken aback, but they stayed quiet. The Hokage paused for a few seconds to check whether anybody else was sick of their head. Because there was nothing but quiet, the Hokage shifted the topic. Now that we've finished this, I'd want to talk about what we lost and how much it will cost to reconstruct. The Hokage chose to change the subject. Throughout it all, one clan chief stayed mute. Clan Uchiha was led by Fugaku Uchiha. Fugaku was well acquainted with the boy's parents. Mikoto, his wife, was close to Kushina Uzumaki. He wasn't sure how his wife would react if she discovered he was being raised at an orphanage. He, on the other hand, was not excited about it. The Hokage stated at the conclusion of the meeting that Naruto would never be mentioned as the Jinhuriki of the Kyuubi again. That knowledge was classified as S-class, and revealing it would result in the death penalty. Naruto. While all of this was going on, a baby with red hair was napping. The seal in his stomach was completely invisible. To remain warm, he was covered in sheets. Naruto was dead asleep, yet he was the only one who noticed when his seal started to burn red for a few seconds and then stopped. Chapter 2, Alone in the World. 1 year later. The village had been rebuilt, all the destroyed buildings and the flames weren't there anymore. Despite looking from the outside that nothing was wrong. Inside, you could still see that people hadn't forgotten about the Kyuubi, the demon who killed their loved ones and, most importantly, killed the fourth Hokage. As people were walking around the street and busy doing their jobs and living their lives, the same couldn't be said for a baby crying in the orphanage. The baby with red hair was crying. Despite being only a year old, Naruto could still say a few words and take a few steps, but that only worsened his situation. Naruto was still tiny, but even he understood that he wasn't having the attention of anyone around him. Or if he did, he would get glares of hatred that made Naruto scared and sad. Right now, Naruto was crying since he was alone in a room and there was no one else there. No other babies sleeping, just him. Suddenly the door opened, revealing a woman glaring at the demon brat as everyone liked to call him. Seeing someone, Naruto stopped crying and smiled at the woman. He was happy that someone had come for him despite having the cold feeling from her. The woman got angry when he saw that the demon was smiling. That smile reminded her of her dead girl who died when the Kyuubi attacked. She glared at the monster, and his smile made her snap. She slapped him in the face. Naruto immediately started crying and touching the place where it hurt. The woman smiled that she could break the demon and left the room. She left him to cry until he got tired. Naruto kept crying for 4 hours until he slept but woke up again after a few hours because he was hungry. Naruto was given food only once or twice a day, but even then was given the bare minimum. If it were in the hands of people who worked there, they would let him starve, but the Hokage would visit once a month to check on him, and they knew it would be dangerous to anger the Hokage. In the beginning, Hokage noticed from how Naruto looked like that he wasn't being fed. He had warned the people who worked in the orphanage to treat Naruto like the other children. After 3 months, Naruto was crawling to the place where he knew they kept the food. His baby legs didn't make a sound, and he knew, if he was quiet, he could reach the room without anyone noticing. Naruto just hoped none of the other children would wake up in the middle of the night crying. As Naruto reached the door, and was happy that no one was guarding it. At first, he couldn't reach the handle but then used a few books to reach it and slowly opened the door not to make a sound. Naruto looked inside and was even darker than it was in other rooms. The other room had windows, so the light of the moon brightened up the rooms slightly. This room had no windows that Naruto could see. He was scared, but he was hungry, so he swallowed a huge breath and decided to be brave and crawled slowly inside the dark room. Naruto slowly crawled to a jar with food that he knew the other children were fed with. He put his hands around the pot but couldn't move it. It was heavy for him. Naruto then tried to use his hands to open it where it was but to no success. He was disappointed, but he was hungry. His stomach started growling as to answer him. Naruto tried again and again but had no success. Naruto felt tears in his eyes and decided to try one more time, and he started feeling something from his seal in the stomach. The seal started glowing red, and Naruto opened the jar. He smiled so much that even his eyes were smiling. Naruto felt the feel from his tummy but decided to ignore it. Naruto then put his hand inside the jar and started eating with his little hands. That went on for almost an hour. Naruto then slowly closed the pot again and left the room quietly. After 2 years, Naruto was looking outside the windows as it was raining. It has been raining for 5 days now. Now Naruto was only 3 years and 3 months old. He was able to walk, talk, run and even knew how to read a little. He felt lonely in this place. He had seen how a woman would look and treat other children, they would always smile and be kind to them. While no one was kind to him, they would all look at him with anger and coldness. He didn't know why. He couldn't understand what he could have done to make them hate him. The only person he knew that was kind to him was the older man with robes. He was the only one who gave him a kind smile, but Naruto could feel sadness coming from the older man whenever he saw him. The older man told Naruto that he was the Hokage of the village and explained to Naruto what his job was. Naruto understood that he was the strongest and the most important man in the village, but that confused Naruto. If he is what he says that he is, then why is he spending time with me? Naruto had asked himself but found no answers. Naruto had heard other children calling certain people Papa and Mama in the orphanage. Naruto didn't know why he didn't have them. He had asked a woman who worked here where his parents were. She answered him. They abandoned you, demon. No one would ever love you. Naruto had run to his room crying after hearing that. Sometimes Naruto would see dreams of a woman with the most beautiful smile talking sweet words to him. She would call him Sachi, and she would kiss his cheek and his forehead. Naruto always saw her smile but never her face. The dream would always end when he tried to look at her face. The only thing Naruto could remember from her was her long red hair. Just like his. Naruto had heard many children of his age or older calling him a tomato. Naruto didn't care that much, at least that was much better than being called a demon. But he heard many adults pointing out his hair and saying that was proof that he was a demon. Naruto then had wondered if everyone hated him because of his red hair, but he quickly pushed that thought away. That was just ridiculous to him and made no sense to him. Naruto had also noticed the 3 whiskers in each cheek of his face. He wondered what they were and why he had them. For this question, Naruto decided to ask the older man once he revisited the orphanage. Naruto had also noticed the weird drawn in his stomach. He had seen how the mysterious symbol would glow red sometimes. Naruto had an odd feeling in his tummy every time that happened. Naruto hadn't asked anyone what that meant because he hadn't asked anything since the woman told him that his parents had abandoned him because he was a demon. Now, as Naruto was looking at the rain, he felt someone coming towards his room. He knew this one wasn't the older man despite feeling powerful like him. Naruto just hoped that whoever it was wasn't there to beat him or call him a demon. The door slowly opened, and Naruto saw an older man walking inside. White spiky hair, red markings under his eyes, a headband with the kanji for oil, a traditional red geto with 2 yellow circles on each side of his cheek. Naruto wondered who this one was, but he didn't feel anything sinister coming from him. Jiraiya. As he opened the door and looked at his godson, the first thing he noticed was how much he looked like Minato and Kushina. True, his hair was red but was spiky, just like Minato's hair, and his face looked a lot like Minato's. He wouldn't be surprised if Minato looked exactly like Naruto when he was the same age except for blonde hair. His hair looked just like Kushina's hair. Red like blood and somehow made him look cuter. But then the old Sannin looked at his eyes and saw that Naruto was afraid of him and could tell from his face that he wasn't happy here. Jiraiya holds himself not to go immediately and beat up whoever made him this sad. Jiraiya decided to immediately let him know that he was friendly and that there was no need to be afraid. Naruto, don't be afraid of me. I'm a friend, Jiraiya said kindly to the young boy. Naruto raised his eyebrow in confusion. You are my friend? He asked with a tiny voice but not wanting to be helpful. The older man nodded with a kind smile. I thought friends were supposed to be around my age. Why do I only get old people as friends? Naruto asked innocently. No one from his age wanted to be his friend, and so far, the old man Hokage was the only one who Naruto could call a friend. Jiraiya's eyebrow twitched slightly at being called old but let that go for now. I'm not that old, and what's wrong with a godfather visiting his grandson? Jiraiya responded, smiling, and the moment he said that, he was hugged by Naruto, who had embraced his legs. Jiraiya smiled, and Naruto was hugging him tightly, almost afraid that he would leave him. He started playing with Naruto's hair, and he looked up at him with tears in his eyes. But Jiraiya could tell Naruto was happy. Will I live with you? Please. Naruto asked, hoping that he could leave this place. Jiraiya immediately frowned since he knew that he would be in the village only for a week and then leave again. How about you and I sit Jiraiya asked, and both of them sat in Naruto's bed. Naruto had noticed the feeling of sadness coming from the older man but decided to not ask about it. Jiraiya sighed and took a deep breath. He turned to his grandson, who looked like his eyes were shining with happiness. "Tell me, Naruto, how is your life here?" Jiraiya asked, despite knowing how his grandson might be treated here. From his face alone, Jiraiya knew Naruto was treated harshly. Naruto frowned and lowered his gaze. Jiraiya felt stupid to ask that, so he decided to change the subject. "Tell me, Naruto, do you know how to read and write?" Jiraiya asked, rubbing his hair. Naruto turned his head to him. "I only know a little, I taught myself, but it's hard to find any books here," Naruto responded. Jiraiya was surprised that he knew how to read. He smiled and grabbed a book from his coat. "The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi," Jiraiya said, and gave the book to Naruto, who grabbed it and looked like someone just gave him the best gift in the world. "I will teach you how to read and write. And after that, I will give you new books to read if you want to become a shinobi," Jiraiya added, smiling. Naruto turned to his godfather. "Thank you," he repeatedly said, hugging both him and the book. "Don't worry, Naruto," Jiraiya said, hugging him back. They stayed like that for a few minutes, and Naruto pulled back and opened the book on the first page. Jiraiya was happy that Naruto wanted to learn, and he started teaching Naruto how to read and write. That all for What If Naruto found out about Uzumaki clan at an early age. If you like the story so far, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to my channel, and also show your support to the author by following the link down in the description. Thanks for listening, and until next time.